set. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Bobby.
Let me set the scene. My understanding, this meeting was called in order to review policies S and or G and S. And to be honest, my first reaction was, just reviewing these out of the blue. I hope we don't send a signal to somebody who will think, wonder what those guys are up to. Because we've had the two policies for 5 years now, and there's never been an issue. Maybe I'm a little bit paranoid, but it seems there are people on both sides of this subject who just are itching to cause problems even when there's no issue. But having said that, and the main reason I said it was because we're being recorded, we're on the internet, and I just want to make sure everyone that there is no hidden agenda involved in this. I did review the two policies in preparation for the meeting, and I'll be honest, there were more than a handful of, I guess you would call nitpicks that I'd like to play around with, and one substantive area that I'll bring up as well. But the driving force of the meeting in the first place was to hear from the FAN committee, and so let's start the meeting with your input.
Okay, well, shall I address that as the chair of that committee? Right? Oh, am I muted? No. Okay, so I will provide that input. There's Parker. Hey, Parker, we just started.
Sorry, I'm late.
Don't let that happen again. Gosh. Okay, so the FAN committee is preparing talking points for different aspects of seeking support from members of the library community and the community at large in the library budget from the county, the issue of uniform hours, expanding our hours and having uniform hours at regionals and communities, and then the being ready if there's a possible challenge to any of our materials. So in light of that, we prioritized in at our next meeting, we will be finalizing our talking points for the collection budget. And we put on hold collection challenges or questions and uniform hours. So in the meantime, the committee members felt that it would be advantageous to have the ad hoc committee review the existing policies to see if there's anything that needs to be modernized or cleared up, clarified, or anything like that. So that's the engagement, involvement, etc. of the FAN club, which is friends, advocates, and neighbors. Okay, does anybody, Parker or Sujatha, want to add anything to that? Or is that pretty well summarized it pretty quickly, I mean? Yeah.
Nothing to add.
Okay. Gary, do you have any questions or issues or anything?
No, I think you clarified it. So you're really not coming in with a specific overriding concern. You just think it's prudent to make sure that what we have is what we should have.
Right.
Well, there's like, if you were to look at those specific G and S, G in particular, you might see, like you said, nitpicky, whatever. I mean, I noted things like merit and significance, changing social values, and that I thought might could use some linguistic tightening maybe to make
Mhm.
sure that, you know, like the idea of merit and significance, that's a moving target, as is changing social values, obviously, whether we should be changing, you know, like what that means. Because what we really are trying to do is make sure that everybody has access to what they need in the library. And that should be irrespective of changing social values. We should have things that are relevant to us and our lives and our needs in our libraries. So if the society were to become, say, significantly tightened regarding what we are allowed to do or think or whatever, we still should have access to that, to materials that speak to us as individuals in our library in the United States of America, right? And that is, of course, in alignment with the spirit of the ALA, which we sort of use those principles to guide our behaviors anyway. So it's that was sort of what I was thinking when I read those things, that we want to make sure that our library fundamentally and primarily offers our community the breadth of what it could possibly need for their own particular life needs, livelihoods, health, benefit, mental health, etc., whatever, regardless of what happens outside of life.
Okay, so I guess we start with G. How do you want to do this? You want to actually go through it line by line and make suggestions?
Or maybe item, yeah, start, I would say item by item, don't you think? Like for me, item 1, I didn't have any changes in mind.
Well,
I don't know if
number
anybody-
1 is the one that has developed collections of merit and significance. So it does, oh, thank you.
There you
so
go.
much. So number 1 is the one that has merit and significance. And, you know, I know that I don't have a problem personally with understanding merit and significance, what merit and significance, what the spirit of the words merit and significance are to mean, right? But then I am also not one who tends to challenge what's in our libraries, you know? I really want everybody to be able to find what they need in the library, regardless of whether I agree with them philosophically. I would like them to be able to find what they want in the library, you know? So I don't know whether we should just keep that or whether we should think about whether we need to tighten that definition. I would love to hear what you guys think about that, what I'm saying, like regarding merit and significance. Merit and significance are significantly, significant. They are very subjective words. They change. And different people have different ideas about what is meritful, what is significant, value in terms of its value to the collection. Like I think a lot of things are of great value to the collection. I also think other things are just like, ugh, like I would never have it on my shelves. Wouldn't want, you know, necessarily to be disseminating some stuff, but nonetheless, I understand it could speak to some people. So I don't know.
I'll just chime in here and say that the merit language has a lot of roots in ALA language.
I felt like the ALA, of course, I don't see it here, but the but those last, there are a couple of them that are ALA, that are straight from, that have links to ALA language, like they go straight to the ALA website. And ALA spends, and I'm not saying we should do this, but ALA spends a lot of square inch of space being very eloquent and clear with their language in support of a robust collection that speaks to everybody. I'm not sure that we have to do that, but this doesn't, I mean, it doesn't mirror ALA language in that, in the heft of it. I mean, again, I understand exactly what merit and significance means. And I don't personally, if I were to read this and I were not on the library board and I weren't concerned about this, I wouldn't think twice. I'd be like, yes, library shall develop collections of merit and significance. I completely understand what that means. But if we are looking at it with a scrutinizing eye, I feel like that is a place where it could be, where we could just sort of like put guardrails around it. You know?
They raise the question of what's the sentence do? What does it, what use is it?
To
I
me-
imagine that the use of it is that it's telling everybody that the goal, the goal of library staff, for library professionals is to thoughtfully engage in collating and cultivating a collection that is worthy.
Well, the next one says that the materials shall be considered in terms of the value to the collection and the audience. That includes what you're talking about. It doesn't have to be merit or significant. It has to be of value to the audience.
You mean the second sentence in number one? Each item of
Right, the
material. shall be-
second sentence to me tells what we're supposed to do. The first one, the first one confuses matters because.
So you're saying you think that maybe it would read better if we took merit and significance out and say the library shall develop collections with considering its these items value to the collection and the audience for whom it's intended.
That's my reaction.
I mean, it does take out the quibble factor.
And I don't know what we lose.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not sure what we lose either. What we lose is that sort of the prettiness of it, because I do like the idea of thought specifically around merit and significance. I do like that, but it does take out there's no reason to argue if you don't have it there.
I
Like there's
think
nothing
the
to argue
purpose,
about.
I think it's good because it starts with the big picture of the collections. The second sentence then goes, I want to say drills down, but it starts with the general, then gets to each item is considered in terms of that as also reading and language abilities. And I don't know whether we should have citizens because we serve more than citizens. But I like that it starts with a broad definition, and then it breaks it down into slightly more specific. And then a little bit about what besides those lofty goals, we also consider reading and language abilities.
Let me ask you a question, Fran. Would you think would you feel the same if we were to take merit out and kept significance? Like the library shall develop collections of significance. I think significance is.
No, I don't
harder
know,
to quibble over.
because later it's very clear, we also get things for entertainment and recreation. And is that significant? I mean,
I think so. I think those are significant.
it's
My-
important.
my-
It's
my-
important, yeah.
Yeah, the alarm on my head about the word merit and how triggering the word merit can be in our community. I have seen that for several years, how triggering the word merit can be. That is the only reason that I was drawing attention to it.
I think to me, having served on reconsideration panels and also done collection development, and when we get complaints or requests for books that are not thoughtfully prepared, or they are just, a scree, or, they and I know that merit, like, do they have merit, and what do we mean by merit? And to me, it's like thoughtfully prepared, reputable, et cetera, and not just, we don't just go and use our money to buy all the paperbacks that we can find anywhere. There are standards of, of what are you going to use your limited funds for? What word would the library shall develop collections of stuff? No, what would you?
I still don't understand what direction that gives to Diane or anybody that's making these purchases. It's so vague that it doesn't give any guidance.
Yeah, so the collection development line should address not necessarily a value judgment, but like an assessment of quality. Because otherwise, like if it is, we are just developing collections,
Really.
we will end up with nothing but donated books.
I very much appreciate what you're saying, Kevin.
But they have to be of value to the audience. And a bunch of junk that's donated books, you're saying isn't of value to the audience.
Well, one could say that if it's donated, somebody once owned it, meaning it had value to somebody at some point when they bought it. So, I mean, there are a lot of ways to argue that. I would just,
No, what I'm saying is that addresses Kevin's concern.
addresses
You
what
don't
here?
need the merit and significance to address that concern. The word value addresses that concern.
In terms of value to the collection.
Mhm.
I understand that. Is there a way for us to value to the collection means has that meaning of, I think what Kevin you're talking about, we want to have our collection, that is of worthy books to our collection. Perhaps value to the collection does mean enough to remove merit and significance. Although again, like I have a hard, I know.
I would say that value is a more loaded term with a more literal interpretation.
But merit is the.
I hear you saying, I guess what I'm saying is the way the whole thing is constructed currently is the opening sentence dictates what kind of collection. And then the second sentence indicates value as related to merit and significance. So we would that whole thing would need to get rephrased to say something along the lines of like the library will develop collections of cultural value or something of that effect, not because on a
Once
first
you add
read,
cultural to value, you make it worse than merit in terms of.
I
budget,
agree.
in terms of
But I guess what
danger.
I'm saying is
Yeah.
value as the only descriptor, most people, I think, would probably see that to mean financial value.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, just to jump in, I mean, I can appreciate any of these terms they can be triggering, right? Because they're very subjective. I mean, I think the word, the word merit is defined as the quality of being particularly good or worthy. And I kind of feel like, Gary, you said this at our meeting, at the end of our meeting, when we were talking about discussing changes. And I feel like if we're going to make changes, they're going to, people will interpret like, why was that change made? And
I do hear that. That makes sense.
So I
Could
kind of,
just be like putting a target on the back of the policy by making any changes
Yeah.
at all. My original, the reason I brought it up to begin with, Parker, I think that I did that during fan meeting, I think, right? When I brought it up, was my concern that when leadership or anything changes in terms of the makeup of our county, I don't want to put our collection at risk, our librarians at further risk, because they are at risk right now.
Yeah.
There's a fearful about libraries around the country. A lot of librarians are feeling nervous and scared, rightly so. So I don't like the idea of our not having done what we could to review and see if there was a place. I do understand, however, that any change we do could make people be like, what's happening there, right? When there's no need to be, because nothing has changed. Everything is exactly the same and nothing has changed. I hear you. I am sensitive to that fact, Gary, that people could think something has changed when absolutely nothing has changed or is changing, and there's no plan to change anything, and everything is exactly the same. I hear you. Fran, please tell me what you're thinking, because I'm just,
Well, I'm fine with the word merit and I think, and significance. And I remember, and I think it's an example that I brought up in something I wrote about having worked in a library system where I was a children's librarian, and the head of that department felt that Nancy Drew novels did not have merit to belong in a public library collection. And we, at the time younger, argued that they have merit because kids like to read them. So I'm kind of hooking into Parker, that the meaning, it's a broad meaning. What is the merit? And I think it's important, and I like it as an introduction. What I'm not sure that we need is whether acquired by purchase or by gift. I don't think we need to specify anything. It's like, we develop collections of merit and significance. And, there's also in the strategic plan, the thing of, using the resources that we have wisely, and through our selection standards. That's what the library is very serious about how we use that money. So, I mean, I don't care if it stays in there, it's fine. I just think, maybe a short, strong statement of this is our intent to, it's sort of, I think in the strategic plan, it's like we know we're spending public money. And so there has to be a high bar of what we purchase. And
I
then the
appreciate
next sentence further defines that each item shall be considered in terms of its value to the collection and the audience for whom it is intended. Then
I'm grateful to you guys for this, for indulging my thinking. I am hearing you and being, maybe I don't need to be as worried about it as I am. You know what I mean? I don't want to make an issue where there is no issue. So I appreciate that conversation. And
Paul, I'm gonna, you can see this policy regarding Word document, right? Like you can see the
Yeah.
edits I'm making. All right, I'm dropping Loudoun counties just so you can see it.
of intrinsic merit.
Appropriateness would be a big problem.
Yeah, me too.
So I guess I'm putting that in there to kind of give you what our neighbors to the west, how they phrase it.
I do like the assortment of viewpoints, very stated in there, very, very stated in there, like boom.
Yeah, we get there.
And we do that later. Yeah.
And I do want to point out that like number 4 also uses the word merit.
Yeah.
Appropriateness is up for interpretation. They do have a kind of a nice little line in there about entirety of the work, not isolated passages.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
like a
That's nice.
they're kind
That's
of
really
packing it in. But
Mhm.
all of that said, I think it might be worth addressing like all of 1 through 9 before we start considering more edits to 1, because like the
Yeah.
phraseology or whatever, it might result in like everything having to be recomposed.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think
I do like in number 3, even in ours, number 3, flexibility, open-mindedness, responsiveness, right value, like that's, we do get, like, again, when I went through this the first time, there were, it was only in number 3 where it says, changing social values made me concerned. Again, all of this is because I have like one, like a lens on it that is under constant attack, right? So like, you know, I'm under constant attack. So it's like these kinds of things I have like a beep, it comes on. I'm like, I get worried because I can see in the future, if say schools are the canary in the coal mine, we can see libraries are like right, right coming behind them in terms of, where people find a place to lodge a threat or complaint and try to unravel access. Really, it's an access issue. So when you shut it down, you shut down access and you shut down access to information, which is a dangerous and slippery slope. So that is the rationale again. I worry about changing social values because regardless of changing social values, I would like our library collection to be robust.
So we're moving on to 2.
Okay, if we're gonna do this, though, I think we need to decide. Are we looking? Well, we have to make the decision. Are we going to not make changes in those things that could raise an issue and problems? Even though we don't like the way it's worded exactly? Because anything we do here is not going to change what we do. In other words, Diane's not going to buy any different book because of anything we change here. And to Jaffa's issue is down the road, when people start making complaints, is anything here going to affect that? And I would say no to both questions. Now, when we get to them, yes, that's a different issue. But what I'm saying is, as we go through this, we have to answer that question first before we go through every one of these. If we decide we're not concerned about that, then I got lots of things I would change.
Well, to me, in a way, how when you write a paragraph, you write the thesis sentence and then everything after that has to answer because, and I sort of view number 1 as like the thesis. And then if we go through, oh, there's a message from Jessica. Is she coming?
You don't
If
want any
we-
part of this, guys, trust me.
Oh, no.
What?
You don't
We
want
don't want
any
any-
part of this.
Of whatever Jessica just texted about.
Oh, okay. So in a way, Gary, I'm thinking like maybe if we leave up these alternatives, then as we're looking at the follow-ons, we might have some ideas there. Because for example, I completely rewrote number 3. And I have a lot of changes in number 2, but I left number 1 the same.
I also have to admit, I could care less if this thing sounds good,
You could care less about what, Gary?
whether it sounds well.
Oh,
I spent too many years helping write laws, and they're the most boring things you could possibly read. And I see this as kind of in that context. We're writing laws, and it's not like a speech we're giving on the floor or something. It has to sound good. And if we cause problems by making it sound right, to me, that's the bigger concern. But anyway, okay, let's.
Well, Gary, you know what, I see this, I see rewriting this so that it's very clear to anyone who has an issue with something in the collection. And I think it's that information is here now, but for me, I just am like, can we just make it kind of shorter and clearer, that this is what we do, this is what we have, and here's how we do it. And we have a way for you to complain about it.
concision is really, really nice thought to have here. Like if it's very clear, we've said everything very clearly without any waffling, just like, this is what we're about.
This is what we stand for.
This is what we stand for. Like I
Yeah.
always think about our Brian at you know, a meeting some months ago when he basically said, this is what the ALA says, this is what we stand for, this is what we do. We're not doing that, we're doing this. You know,
So
and
you're,
just like,
you're supporting my position,
I'm sorry.
but by making it shorter and tighter, it won't sound as,
Yeah, exactly. There's no room for the quibble. Right. I really would like to take out any room for the quibble because at least people can quibble and people will quibble, but they would not find any place to be like, what did you mean by that? Why did you say that? What did that mean? Like that kind of, and especially issues in bad faith, when people make arguments in bad faith. If we've said it very concisely, very clearly, this is what we're about, boom. You can say stuff, but you won't find words in our own policies that could be quibbled with.
you made
I
my
like that
point
idea.
better than I did. Okay, so let's go to number 2. Oh, by the way, on number 1, I agreed, in fact, I wrote it down with Fran about the word citizen. Although there again, you probably could raise a problem with somebody. But we definitely, we serve residents, we don't serve citizens.
Or just reading and language ability, no, of users, of readers, of individuals. I don't know what's the best term to put there.
Yeah, I mean, we're not checking to see if like a person's a
Yeah.
US citizen, so I
Right,
right.
right.
mean, maybe
Say
it's
Right.
the community. reading and
library patrons or users or, yeah,
Yeah,
community.
Users is good, isn't it?
what?
Users. Reading and language abilities, and Gary said users. I'm thinking the community because there might be people who are not yet users who might
Yeah,
Yes.
just
be
wanderers.
invited in before
In
they're
the
really.
community, that's true, that we don't want people from outside the community using the library, is that true? Anybody can, can't they?
Yeah, but and that could mean like a library community rather than,
Oh, I see.
yeah, it's, it could be. But people who walk in the door, yeah, it could be anybody.
So you want to use
yeah.
community?
It's much more welcoming for sure.
Okay, good,
Okay,
Yeah, non-citizens and non-residents can have cards,
yeah.
right? And anybody can come in, so.
Okay,
Is
then number-
all, is the word all too broad? I guess users would be.
where's all?
do we need to modify what we do by that sentence? Well, probably.
Well, I like the idea of stating it specifically because there are some people who, who don't like the idea of everybody having access, like, or having a lot of different languages and a lot of different,
Yeah, and I think about those the dual language reading kits that we have and SOL, or not SOL, ESL.
I think that because the ethos of FCPL anyway is that everyone is welcome here. And we want you to come and use everything. We want you to come and use our services.
Or it could be diverse reading and language abilities are respected.
I think that when they're saying considered, though, they're talking about the collection, right? So there's like this, it's talking about the collection. So you're considering having a breadth of what's available. So it's not even respect, it's like you're considering it when you're making these choices, or get respected and considered, or considered or respected. Basically, you're talking about a library
Taken into
collection.
account.
taken into account.
I don't know. And
Well-
I don't know if maybe that goes in one of the more specific paragraphs rather than in the general, but let's see. Let's go on and see what else we come up with.
I do think if we just change citizens to community, after hearing all I think that's probably the simplest way to capture what we're trying to capture.
That's good. I like it.
I see Kevin put that down, so.
Yeah, we like it. Okay.
Okay. But for number 2, couple of my little nitpicks that I always bring up. You know, do it in more than one place here. But in the second sentence there, the word will should be shall.
Mhm.
Because shall is a requirement. Will is just an indication of something in the future. And all these policies should be that way. And then the other one is very minor, but I'll do this throughout too. In the last sentence, which formats, which should be that,
Mhm.
because that means that the phrase is essential to the sentence, whereas which would be parenthetical. Okay. All
One of
right.
in one of my writing groups, someone said that which has to be followed by a comma. So if you're not
That's-
sure which one to use, you can use that test. And then if it doesn't seem right, which comma are being acquired would not be
Right.
right.
Unfortunately, lawyers are the worst offenders of that, but anyway.
Are you a lawyer, Gary?
No,
You played
No.
one on TV though.
I used to,
You used to be a lawyer? I thought you were still a lawyer, Parker.
So
I kind of- yeah.
I'm sorry. So for me, if you're finished, Gary, I'll
I'm
go
just off
ahead.
task, sorry.
with my, so first, but this is just to be thinking about, not to do anything yet. I think that we should have as number 2, something about the content rather than the format, but whatever. In looking at number 2, I would leave sentence number 1, but then sentence number 2 is these shall include books for young people and adults. You do not need a comma there. In hardcover, paperback, large print, audio, and or digital editions. Shouldn't that be format? Because that's what you're talking about. Database services, blah, 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 microfilms, comma, and maps. Then I would make the next sentence, the library shall provide and maintain equipment to access materials for people with disabilities, period. Then if there are new kinds of materials, it can kind of be, unless it doesn't feel right without these materials, but that sort of shortens it up. And then the next sentence is really strange to me. It's growth and change occur in these areas. What does that mean? The library shall really reevaluate the formats which are being acquired or not acquired. And that's very awkward. And I could not think of a way. I mean, I understand why we're not getting it anymore. You know, nobody gets microfilm anymore, microform, or well, some historical things, maybe, I don't know. And I don't know if there's another way to say that we're not buying that anymore. We don't buy beta.
We could say, you know, that library shall evaluate.
Review formats for purchase.
Review formats for
Is that what
purchase.
you were gonna say? I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
just blew.
like,
Yeah, you're
basically
that's-
that, yes. like
that's
what
it,
when you're
yeah.
writing-
What that
Yeah.
that contains whether or not yes or no.
I personally agree with everything you said, Fran, except for the last thing that, which I don't understand.
You mean
As
about the
as
formats?
growth and change occur in these areas, the library shall reevaluate the formats that are being, what did we say?
Yeah,
Oh, review formats for purchase.
Okay.
Isn't that what we said, how that would contain?
or whatever it is that you'd like, what she's trying to say is instead of this awkward sentence, like
Yeah.
something very simple
to
that
say
says
the
we will
same
be
thing that-
evaluating, you know, the obsolescence, right? Like something's just become obsolete. So, you know, we will be, you know, reviewing our, you know,
Really, Kevin, you could leave all of it except when you get to formats, and then just cross out which are being acquired or not acquired.
We would need to say something after formats.
Yeah, but I was waiting for you. to do our bidding. No. Okay, reevaluating, shall reevaluate.
The formats that are being acquired.
Considered. How about that are being considered for acquisition?
Yeah.
Formats being evaluated for acquisition.
We could make a mention about whether what we're evaluating is whether or not these formats are current, whether they are outdated, right? So
Being evaluated for what?
Purchase.
Acquisition.
Or
For whether they're
acquisition,
outdated.
acquisition,
acquisition, right?
or
Whether
acquisition,
they are-
yeah.
I
Well,
don't
we
think-
make,
I don't think that's less wordy.
but the
No,
other is so,
We
which
already
we
say
will acquire or
evaluate.
not acquire.
They're being evaluated for acquisition, they're not being evaluated.
So as that sentence written, evaluate is in it twice.
Yeah, this is not the sentence. This is not, this is not the one. It's saying like I understand what Fran was saying regarding the awkwardness of the original sentence, but like, I need to type to make. What could we say? Regularly review? The library shall regularly review materials or material for the regularly review the
I think if we're trying to prevent people from pointing to the policy and saying, what does regularly mean? Whereas now it says, we'll do it.
yeah. Yeah.
But if you say we do it regularly, they're gonna say, is that annually? Is that what, you know what I mean? As
That's true,
opposed
that's true,
to,
that's true.
we stopped buying playaways, right?
So up there in the second sentence with the digital, all of those things, calling them additions instead of format.
I didn't understand. What was,
Books for young adult, these. I don't know why shall is capitalized. These shall include books for young people and adults in hardcover, paperback, large print, audio, and or digital format rather than editions. I think formats is more,
I thought
no,
we-
he has
I
formats
thought
in
we
the other
already
sentence.
accepted that. Didn't we accept all your suggestions except? for the last
Oh,
one?
And why do you need to put that in there? If you say currently appropriate formats or available formats, do you need to put?
it's because the second half of the sentence refers to them as digital.
Of currently appropriate formats, comma, including digital? With that, I don't know. Well, but you
what I'm
have
saying is
database
digital
and
editions
periodicals.
of databases, periodicals. newspapers.
Yeah,
I mean, you could, in theory, remove all of that and just say digital formats, but that seems to imply that we wouldn't. Like, there would need to be another statement about digital
Ooh.
collections of databases and online resources.
yeah, that doesn't say, I was just gonna say, that doesn't say anything about online, because
These,
digital is
these are all
different.
online.
Yeah,
That's why it said digital editions.
but is digital and online the same? Are they the same thing?
Effectively, because a digital database hasn't been stored like on an on-site computer in, I don't know, 20 years. So like, remember like when we used to have like Britannica on
Yeah,
cassette?
yeah.
That would have been like a digital edition, but like an online edition is digital. It's just the way you access it is through the internet instead of through a card reader. So I wouldn't I don't know that there would be benefit to disambiguating digital from online. Because there are certain things that we have that are probably still on CD somewhere in the collection.
Yeah. We still have microfilm, I think, in the Virginia room, maybe not, but it's duplicated by online, access to online. That raises a question in my mind. We say provide equipment to access these materials for people with disabilities. But we also have the equipment for people who don't have online at home. And that's a different thing. Put that in the parking lot.
That's not related to the collection development policy. That's more, collection access. That doesn't need to be in the development.
See, I had said the library shall provide and maintain equipment to access these materials. Number 2, the library shall provide and maintain equipment to access these materials for people with disabilities.
Period. Right? That can go.
This part, Parker?
Yeah, Fran's change you can just put the library
line
shall
through that,
provide
yeah.
and maintain,
Equipment.
and then take out that last phrase. Yeah.
Do we want to get into maintenance? Because
We do.
Provision seems to imply maintenance, doesn't it? Like that we provide functional.
Yeah,
I
probably
mean, it's
does.
y'all's call. We don't actually maintain equipment.
You have to.
Oh, so this was and to maintain these collections. That's maintaining the collections. That's not maintaining the equipment. I get you.
Right.
To maintain the, okay, so you're not gonna maintain, so if equipment breaks down, you don't fix it.
I mean, we can, like, whatever you guys want to put in there, sure.
Well,
but
what's accurate? No, I'm just asking if
what
it's
what
not
I'm saying is,
accurate.
like, so if we're trying to be, if we're going for concision. And someone looks at the policy and says, well, it says in your policy, you're going to maintain this equipment.
So maybe have the library shall provide equipment to access and maintain.
Because if we say we're going to provide equipment, we will be providing equipment. But if we add the additional, we're also going to maintain this equipment, we could find ourselves in a situation where when we need to deaccession an old format or whatever, like an old microfilm reader, that someone could point to the policy and say, you said you would maintain this. Whereas we could replace it with a digital replacement or a new format style. I would say that if we're making a statement that the library provides equipment to access, that it is implied that the equipment we provide will always be functional. But the additional clarification that we maintain extant equipment, to me, reads as like unnecessarily in the weeds. And it doesn't, it doesn't see value
100% agree
added.
with that, Kevin. You don't
Okay.
want to get yourself into a position where you are being held to something that's not what you meant. We maintain the equipment as if we're using the equipment and if it's maintainable. I know you have a stock of parts that you can switch in and out for our Chromebooks, for example, et cetera. You do the best you can, but it would be a big problem if people were to take that with an unintended literalness that got in the way of actually providing the service that we're trying to provide. I agree with that. Also, I do have to leave this meeting at 4 o'clock on the dot. I have another one right at 4 o'clock. And I was, didn't realize that the time was flying.
Okay, so where are we with number 2 then? Have we gone,
I'm so sorry, Gary. I can't hear. Did you say something to me? I didn't hear you.
no, not you specifically. I just wondered where we were on number 2.
I don't know.
I thought we had it all done except for the last sentence, but now we revisited the earlier one.
I think
So-
if you're just trying to clear that sentence up, you can just say the library shall evaluate formats acquired.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So as growth and change occur in these areas, the library shall reevaluate the formats, and then it says which are being acquired or not acquired. And if the goal is to thin that out, I think you could just say, as growth and change occur in these area, the library shall evaluate the formats acquired, formats purchased, formats collected.
So
I don't know why it originally said acquired versus not acquired. I don't know if there's intention there.
I guess it could end with shall evaluate the formats to be acquired.
that makes sense to me. Okay, then what did we do up above? Did we change? We changed will to shall, we knocked out the comma after
Adults,
adults. We changed additions to format. And then did we do anything with maintain? Or did we
Not gonna maintain things.
decide not to?
Yeah, I think just taking out that last phrase and to maintain these collections.
yeah, I'm trying to figure out what that even, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, what
is it?
collections are we talking about?
what
Right,
kind
it
of
doesn't-
equipment do we use to maintain collections? Am I missing something here, Fran? Some cataloger thing?
Well, the only thing I could think of was in the Virginia room, the microfilm readers, there's the, but that's not for people with disabilities. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
if
that's
this
not
is,
for maintaining collections. That,
And
like,
if it's
maintaining
just-
collections is like, well, maybe it's like we're stating that we're gonna have the HVAC system at the Virginia room to keep the microfilm from melting or whatever. Like,
or, but it seems like that's the thing about for people with disabilities, right?
right.
It shall
And,
provide
um,
equipment to access these materials for people with disabilities, period.
No, I think it's equipment is the driver there. You need the
Yeah.
equipment for the disabilities and you need the equipment to maintain the collection.
Yeah,
So-
it implies that the equipment used to access the materials is also equipment used to maintain the collection.
Right, and I
And I
agree.
don't- I don't know
And
what that,
that,
I don't
didn't
see
make
why we
sense.
need it. Just put a
Yeah.
period after disability.
yeah,
It could
Okay,
have just been, it honestly could have just been a miswrite, like the acquired and not acquired. I mean, it could have just been.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem to make any sense. So if it, maybe it does, maybe Jessica knows,
yeah,
or maybe
perhaps.
somebody with a little bit longer institutional knowledge remembers.
All right, guys, well-
okay,
we made it just over 20%.
That's not bad, actually. Considering the fine tooth comb, this is very actually good.
So before you slip off, Sujatha, so as you guys can see here on number 2, I'm using track changes,
Mhm.
which is just like we can go in and approve or disapprove, and we can see all the different stuff and comments or whatever. I didn't put any track changes in on number 1 because like these are kind of the notes, and then there were
Okay.
three different versions, and I didn't want to lose that. So that's why that's there. I'll give
That's
this to
good.
Jessica. And then I guess, when does this committee meet again?
You have to decide that.
Yeah,
Should you, I don't
That
know
was on
how,
our agenda to decide. on
I'm,
the-
I am not Robert's rules here, but I guess you should probably do that before.
Yeah,
well, actually, what we usually do is Jessica figures out times that's good for her and then asks us.
Okay,
if
Okay.
any of those are good.
I'll make a note of that. Jessica will book next time.
And before that, I mentioned that I had a substantive question. And that is in S. You'll notice that it basically setting the stage for the reconsideration process. And this was done in 2017 when we went through all the policies and made changes in all of them. And at that point, for some reason that I don't recall, it was decided that the review process would not be in the policy. In other words, the board did not decide what the review process would be. I don't mean review, I mean reconsideration. And so the director does it, and that was included about half a page or so. Before, it was 2 single-spaced pages that went into the whole detail of how to have a reconsideration. And my question is, I think we should decide whether that was the way it should be, that is the way it should be done or not, or should the board make the policy of reconsideration?
I was gonna say, well, to answer your question, I think it's good with staff because they usually appoint a committee of professionals and non-professionals to review the materials. But what I was gonna say is maybe provide
No,
a
I'm
link.
not talking about who does it.
Uh-huh,
I'm talking about
where,
who writes the procedure. Who determines the procedure? That it goes here to a committee, it goes to the director,
we don't,
it goes to the board in the end. I'm not talking about,
right, I think as we do the policy and then they do the procedure. The staff,
in other words, our policy now basically says you gotta have a procedure for reconsideration. Period.
right, and there is one and, you know, but what I was gonna say is perhaps a link in here to that, just as in the other policy, there's a hot link to the different Bill of Rights and stuff like that. Because I think, I mean, that's just a thought that popped into my head that we might
Yeah,
add that.
I already suggested that to Jessica, and she said that
Oh, good,
they would do that.
great
Uh,
minds.
Because that, we're really not transparent if you don't have that. But anyway, that's a question I think should be considered, is whether the procedures should be determined by the Board of Trustees or the administration. Anyway, okay. That it? We'll have Jessica run some dates by us then. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Good.
Good job, good
You're out
work.
of here. Bye-bye, everybody.